Foursquare Micro Farm. Today I finished the Jacob and Finn from the Fab 5 video, and I'm working on some alpaca I received during Tour de Fleece. Tour de Fleece was very good to me this year, and I received some prizes, and this was one of them. And the best thing about this is that not only is it alpaca, but it's already processed into a roving bump, and I don't get a chance to spend a lot of already processed fiber. So this is kind of a treat for me here. Also, along with the alpaca, I received a little bling. So I'm going to try to decide what I'm going to do with this bling. I think maybe it would be cool mixed in with the silk for the silk video. I'm not really sure. So anyway, also got some merino. And I'm looking forward to seeing how much yardage I can get from this sample bag of merino. Okay, now, today I'm in the newly created loom room. I cleared out the spare bedroom and made a loom room here, so now I can set up the looms without being squeezed into a little tiny space in the spinning room. Put the sewing machine probably in here too, so do all the spinning and card making will be done in that room, and then I'll come in here and make a finished product with the weaving loom and with the sewing machine. So anyway, here we go with the alpaca. This is wonderful stuff, really nice and soft. So I'm going to spin it, worsted it. I haven't really quite decided what I plan on doing with it. That's always the hardest part for me, because then I have to decide how to spin it without really knowing what I'm going to do with it. So I'll just get the spinning with it. When I'm done, it'll probably come out to be, let me adjust this camera, about sport weight. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. I got this new tripod clip-on thing from eBay, and it probably took about a week or two. I made one video and the thing broke, so I'm hoping the guy will be honest, give me my money back. I don't want another one. Anyway, so bear with me as I once again start fooling around with the cameras. Okay, so I'm looking at this. And this is about how much I'm planning to draft it out, stop it. The spinning control card doesn't seem to be on here. Let it out, and looks like this will probably want to be about sport weight. And I'm going to pick a shawl from Revelry. Oh yeah, so finished the alpaca, and oh, this stuff was really nice and soft. Drafting from the roving was pretty much a treat. I really enjoyed that a lot. See if I can zoom in a little bit. Oh, see, you can see how nice and soft that is from the zoom in. It's my standard 2-ply, and let me see, I tagged it, and it was 238 yards. I'm not really sure how much it weighed. I don't even know where that scale was, but that's probably about 3 or 4 ounces or so. So that's going to turn out to be a nice yarn. Okay, so that was great. All I have left to do is decide what I'm doing with the Angora I got. It was a lock-spun Angora, and it was really cool. I'll talk about that later. Okay, what I wanted to talk about today for my second part of the segment is how do I decide on a project. Okay, first of all, I got this nifty little binder here. And I know some people just like to just spin and throw caution to the wind and everything, but I'm kind of a big planner, so I plan. So first of all, a lot of times I spin from or from a pattern. I decide what the pattern is going to be. I found out how much yardage I need. And then generally, that's how I spin large projects. Or I'll plan out what I want for weaving, and I have a large project. So here I have a pattern. This is the pattern for the Sontag. And it called for approximately, I think it was 700 yards. It said on Ravelry. And it just so happens this time I did already have the yardage spun up for this one. But let's say that I didn't. So, fiber that was being used, because I like to make my fibers appropriate for what it is that I'm spinning, instead of trying to go through my stash and figure out if what I've already spun is appropriate. And a lot of times I get inspired by looking at the patterns. So this is my fiber study page, and I have a YouTube video on it already, so I won't get really deep with it. So I do my fiber study page, and the Leicester long wool was one of the fiber studies. Here it is raw. And you really don't get to see the really nice curl in this because I've already combed it and kind of pulled it out. But it has a really nice, deep, wavy curl to it. Not as curly as like a mohair. It's not quite that curly, or a tease water. But it's like a deep wave, like a finger wave or an S wave to it. And it's really long. This sample goes across the entire 8-inch to 8.5-inch standard size letter page. So it goes all the way across. Really nice fiber. Has really incredible luster when it's dyed. And so that part goes here where it's raw. I don't have the unwashed in this case. And so we have the raw and then washed. And then I have my little spun sample here. And even without being dyed, you can just kind of see how it's got a nice sheen, kind of luster to it. And then I mark how I did the prep, because this is something I may want to repeat over again. I need to mark where it came from when I got it, and that kind of helps out if I need to get it again. And then at the bottom, what I did to it, okay, and the yardage that I got from it. And it was about 700 something odd yards, and the weight of the before and after. And I always do, when I'm working with raw wool, I do a weight that is before and the weight that's after, because there are some wools that once they're washed, you can lose almost 50% of the weight of the wool. So if you are doing a calculation and you think you need 6 ounces to spin so many yards, and you get 6 ounces of raw, when you get finished, you're not really going to have 6 ounces of raw. So, you know what? That probably should even be a separate video, because a lot of times when I spin for trade, what I'll do is I'll weigh the yarn. I'll weigh the fiber ahead of time. And then I'll weigh it after I've washed it and skirted it. And then I'll weigh it after I spun it, so that the person can see what was the percentage of loss between the wash and the skirt, you know, what could be processed through the cardor or the combs or whatever, and how much waste there was left. So you always want to make sure. And then what I do is I do a lot of sampling. So I know that, for instance, when I spun the merino for an ounce, it was 1.4 ounces of merino. And, oh no, that was the Rambouillet, where I got 166 yards. So I have a good idea of whatever weight I'm spinning at, of how many yards I'm going to get from that weight. So I know that if I want to spin a worsted weight and I'm spinning a particular fabric, if I want to get a certain amount of yardage, then I know how much fiber, clean fiber, I need in order to spin there. Okay, so after I've done my spinning, I have my spinner's control card where I check to see that, and that's in a lot of the videos. And then I have when I'm knitting, I have the pattern, of course, and the pattern's all about the planning. And then I do my page for how I did it, just in case anybody ever asks me and they want to be able to repeat it. Now, weaving is a little different. For weaving, I don't really use patterns for weaving. What I do is I decide what it is I want to weave. I decide the colors that I want, whether it's something natural and I have to go get the fiber for it, or whether it's something I'm dyeing. And then I determine how much the yardage is. So this is a planning sheet from Peggy Oysterkamp on her website. And I use this planning sheet, here's a clean copy, to decide how much warp I'm going to need, and warp and weft. So, first of all, I mean, this sheet is a serious sheet. Look at it. That's part 2, that's part 3. Here's part 4 and part 5. Okay, and so when you're weaving, first of all, you have to determine the length and width of your fabric that you want to make. Then you have to add in a certain percentage for the draw that's going to happen once you take it off the loom, because the loom is stretching the fiber. Once you let go of that tension, it's going to contract. So that's going to be the take up. You're going to have take up in the weft going across. You're going to have take up in the warp going lengthwise as soon as you release that tension. So you have to account for that. And then you have to account for any of the waste from either side of the loom where you tied on at. So you have to add all into your calculations. So after I've figured out exactly how much yarn I need for warp and weft, and then what I do is I take a book and I draw it out, and there's some spaces on here for that, where I'll draw out the color scheme, and I'll draw out exactly which order that the threads are going to go in, and things like that. How I'm going to draft, if I'm going to do a draft plan. Pretty much I'm working on twills, so I don't really use a draft plan. I just decide whatever twill I'm going to do, and I work on that. And that's how I determine how much fiber I need for the weaving. And then once again, I have to know when I'm spinning, the weight of the yarn I'm spinning, and my grist, and that's going to tell me how many yards per pound that I'm going to need. And I know I've already done my samples. I know what my average is at whatever the thickness is of what I'm going to wind up spinning. And then I always add another 10% more to that just to make sure.